a year ago, could you imagine that this is where you'd be?
Scientifically, it was possible to live through it. I think it's not because of Chris Taylor that Great Bear is successful. It's because of all the good people that are involved. Think outside the box, support the scientific team, support the discovery process, and that's why we are where we are today.
But at some point, you've got to come up for air. What more data do you think you need to gather? Because you're going to have to stop at some point. Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up, would be appreciated. And do leave your comments below. Helps us understand the sorts of questions you would like us to be asking, how you think we've done, and of course, what you think of the company. And if you want to listen to this as a podcast or read about it as a transcript or article, you can go to cruxinvestor.com. And of course, for our club members, you've got early access to this video. Plus, if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, for more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Chris Taylor, CEO of Great Bear Resources. What a huge success story that has been. When we spoke to them about a year ago, the share price was about $3. It's around $15 today. In fact, in the course of doing my research this morning and looking and talking to him, it had gone up over $1. So pretty spectacular stuff. They're in the Red Lake district. It's high-grade gold and obviously some bulk as well. They are very unconventional, humble, but unconventional in the sense that when they kicked off, they decided that they're not going to issue a maiden resource, follow convention. They were going to drill, and that's exactly what they've done, over 110,000 meters today and more to come. They've been very successful in keeping dilution to a minimum. The directors invest in the market. So there's a lot to like about this story. He's assembled a very smart team around him and continue to follow that kind of unconventional behavior. For instance, setting up a royalty scheme, but for the benefit of shareholders. Quite like that idea. So lots discussed in here. Very humble individuals, taking no credit, giving all the credit to the ore body, but I think it's a bit more than that. And more importantly, there's a lot more to come, we believe. So take a look at the description at some of the things we discussed. Anything interesting in particular, click on the number beside that topic. That's called a timestamp, and that'll jump you to that part of the video. But enjoy what Chris has to say. Chris, how are you doing, sir?
Matthew, I am doing excellent, as you might imagine. So thanks for speaking with me.
No, well, yeah, it's been a while. I haven't spoken since last May. You've been a busy boy. Markets are loving what you're doing, and you're going to tell us a little bit about how you did it and what the future looks like. But first, give us that 1 minute obligatory elevator pitch, and we'll pick it up from there.
All right, well, Great Bear Resources, trading on the Toronto Venture Exchange. The symbol is GBR, just like Great Britain, another excellent country of which my forebears may have originated. So Great Bear is a gold-focused explorer in Canada. So we have a project in the Red Lake district of Ontario. Red Lake is one of the high-grade mining capitals of the world, and we have found a very large gold system just south of town, beside the highway, which has yielded a series of very exciting gold discoveries over the last few calendar years, and that's led to very impressive growth of the company and a lot of benefit to our shareholders.
Just a bit. This is one of these interviews which I come across, probably a handful in the last 2 years. Yeah, enjoy that drink. Is that water?
It's a green tea, actually.
Green tea.
And the mug is very appropriate for investing.
I like it. I like what you've done there. I'll have to send you one of ours. So this company, like I say, it's one of those companies that there's probably a handful over the last 2 years that we've interviewed where people have done what they said they're going to do. Okay, I'm interested in how you've gone about doing that one, because there's no doubt one of the big success stories in the market over the last 18 months for sure, and we'll get onto that. But can you just talk us through what's happened since last May? When I spoke to you last, share price was about $3. It was drill. You had some thoughts about how you wanted to do this thing. So what has happened since I last spoke to you? What have the hurdles been? What have you learnt along the way to get you to where you are today, which last time I looked was about nearly $15?
So what made the stock go up 5 times since we were talking a year ago?
Yes, sir.
I guess that's your question. Well, principally gold results coming out of the ground. Philosophically, though, with Great Bear, we do some things a bit differently. So, the first thing that we did differently was we didn't care about the pre-existing model for gold mineralization in the Red Lake area. It was not relevant to us. We just followed the gold, followed the data on the project, and that's how we made the discoveries that we've made. So under the gentle administrations of our VP Exploration, Bob Singh, it's a data-driven approach. We don't skip any steps. We assay drill holes top to bottom, oriented drill core. It's really a science-driven exploration approach, and that means that right from the get-go, when we got involved in the project, we had predecessors that had even drilled high-grade gold on our project in our main discovery zone, but because it wasn't in the right rocks, they had not assayed it. And high-grade gold had sat unassayed and unrecorded in the core boxes for more than a decade. So because we didn't care about the pre-existing model, we found the gold, we began tracking down multiple zones, and we kept with the science-focused approach, and that has delivered those kind of really good results. Like recently, some of the drilling that we've done recently, it is similar to the famous high-grade zone discovery at the main Red Lake gold mine. We drilled recently 15 grams per ton over 45 meters right from surface, which is pretty unprecedented, that included like a meter of 570 odd grams. But, the point being that this is a massive gold target that we found, but it's right to surface. So, back in the Red Lake area more than 20 years ago, Rob McEwen at Goldcorp, founding Goldcorp as the multi-billion-dollar company it is, found this type of material, but they found it at 1 kilometer vertical depth. We have found the same kind of stuff right from surface in a new package of rocks that are obviously highly prospective. So science first, think outside the box, support the scientific team, support the discovery process, and that's why we are where we are today.
And I kind of want to help some people who are perhaps new to this story. Unbelievable, but there may be. The unconventional thinking from day one, which was we're not going to bother getting a maiden resource out quickly. Forget that. We're going to drill. Something allowed you to be able to have that mentality. And was that a case of getting enough money in early so that you could focus on the drilling and not have to worry about market and what the share price was doing all the time?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. People don't often ask me that question, but it's an important part of our philosophy is when the market understands that you need to finance, you're on puppet strings with the financiers. So the company will dance to their tune. In our case, we've made sure that we keep enough money in the treasury that we have the optionality at all times to have the drill program, the exploration program proceed as we want it to proceed. And, that's why recently, we were down to about $20 million in our treasury just last month, and we added another $33 million into the treasury. So we can drill uninterrupted until 2022. And that means that the market understands that we don't need to issue more shares to keep working, and the value of each share can be as high as it will reach based on the results.
Obviously, clearly, nice cheap money relative to even to a year ago. Why 33? Why not 50? Why not 100? How do you make these decisions? What do you want to do here?
Yeah, we gauge it based on the amount of drilling that we need to do. This year, we will have completed more than 300 drill holes in 2020. That'll be, that's going to be hundreds of drill holes in 2021, probably another 500 or so. So we base the raises based on the expected expenditures, but we also keep the share count in mind. And one of the reasons Great Bear has done really well is because we haven't issued stock dilutively. So we only have 50 million shares issued and outstanding right now, whereas most of our peers, some of them have 700 million shares out by the time they get to our market capitalization. And that's strictly a function of how we built the company. When I put the company together with all these people, we wanted to make sure we kept the structure tight, and management had to be aligned with the shareholder base in terms of how we were going to make money. We had to buy stock in the market, and we had to buy it in the private placements just like everybody else.
Talk to me about that one, because again, you're doing things unconventionally. I get everyone wants to have a tight share structure, everyone, but sometimes you just can't. So how have you managed to keep it so low for so long?
Well, effectively, the financings that we've done, the one that we just did, the flow-through component, it's just a financing mechanism in Canada, was $17. The hard dollar component was $11. The placement before that was $8.50. The placement before that was $5.45. The placement before that was $3.50. The placement before that was $1.45. So you can see that these are occurring at successively higher prices. They're successively less and less dilutive, and it makes sure that, you know, that share count stays low. The value of each individual share, we want that to perform as much as possible. So in the denominator of the value equation, you definitely want that number as low as you can in order to perform and reward each individual shareholder as much as possible. You know, nobody in Great Bear complains if they only have 1,000 shares, it's still worth a great deal of money. So we'd like to keep it that way as long as possible. And now going forward, the dilution we need to do is so minimal that the value prospects remain very good.
Okay. You've always been a modest guy, but I need to dig a bit deeper here. I want to understand the sorts of conversations that you guys are having, because you've got a few substantial holders in there, Mr. McKeown being one of them. What are the conversations about? What do you think you've got here, and and how do you go about delivering the end goal for you guys, wherever you think that may be, if you're happy to share that with us?
Yeah, what we'd like to see is really we'd like to see the market begin to understand the size of the system that we've discovered here on the Dixie project. And right now, I mean, people look at the share price, but the market capitalization is still substantially lower than companies that have much smaller gold discoveries than what we've made. So I'd like to see the value reflective of the scale of the discovery. That's something that we just continue to work on. That, as we say, the proof is in the pudding. So just follow the gold results, follow the progress of the company, and discoveries like this, if you want to compare apples to apples, you have to compare them to these really large sort of mines. We compare them in Canada to the Hemlo discovery, which is a 20 million ounce producer. We obviously don't even have a resource yet, but you can see in the physical dimensions and the gold distribution that could be a target that is possible for us to achieve. So you're looking at some of the largest mines in Canada as potential parallels, and those obviously would be worth multiples of where we are. We want to deliver that value to our shareholders, and the way we do that is no nonsense, drill it, the data will drive the value if the value is there.
Okay, so you originally started off saying, back in the early days, a year or so ago, 18 months ago, we're not going to come up with a maiden resource. We're going to drill, gather data, understand what it is that we're sitting on top of here. But at some point, you've got to come up for air. You've got to give the market some sort of sense of when that point is, because you've got to stop drilling at some point. You've got to make a call, plant that flag, and go, right, guys, here we go. Can you give us a sense of what you're thinking about retiming? And what more data do you think you need to gather? Because you're going to have to stop at some point.
Well, even this LP fault discovery that we've made right now, we're drilling as rapidly as we physically can, a 5 kilometer long by 500 meter deep panel along this thing. And that will require about 300 holes. So even with 3 rigs operating on the project now, COVID has reduced us from 5 rigs to 3 rigs just because of staff availability. We'll be back up to 5 shortly. It'll take a full year just to drill off that initial panel, and that's very shallow compared to all the other mines in the area that mine down to 1.5 kilometers to 2.5 kilometers depth. So you can see we're literally just scratching the surface. So we are trying to proceed as rapidly as possible, but the targets are so large that it takes years to drill these things off. So I could give you a resource right now based on the drilling that we've done, but it wouldn't be reflective of the size of the system. And companies often make the mistake. Say, if you were running a gold company and you had say 3 or say 5 million ounces already defined, but you thought you had a 15 million ounce deposit, what would be the benefit to you and your shareholders by putting that number out right now when you know you're going to deliver a much larger number 6 months from now or a year from now? What we do at Great Bear, which is very different from most other companies, is we put every drill hole into the news releases, and we put all the data onto the internet on our website. So anybody in the world can go and they can download every drill hole collar, location, the dips, the azimuths, and they can reconstruct every drill hole that we've done in this LP fault target, our big target, and they can do their resource calculations as they want. I think you can see with the growth in the market value of the company, that people are beginning to understand that this is a major discovery and that value is accruing to shareholders. Be transparent. The best friend that you have when you have a major discovery like this is transparency, because the data backs up the value, and that's exactly what Great Bear does. There are very few companies around the world that do what we're doing.
For sure, and and obviously the market loves what you're doing. You know, market cap circa 700 million Canadian. It's phenomenal for someone which has no resource, which is the kind of conventional way of thinking. And I buy your logic. I do buy your logic. But you know, I guess my question to you is, you know, are you under any pressure from major shareholders to maybe change your thinking, do things differently, or are they happy to ride this out in perpetuity? Because you know what I mean? It's like some point you want to buy yourself a, I don't know, something, whatever that may be.
I think that the last thing our shareholders want us to do is really radically depart from the successful path that we're on right now. We will deliver a resource to the market. I mean, we've been messaging that it's going to come, the initial one, during 2021. I don't know the exact date yet, because the more we find, the more zones that you find, the longer it takes to deliver those numbers to market, because then you have to drill all those zones. And that's what we're in the process of. We keep finding more gold, and we keep finding more gold within the zones that we already have. So it's one of these factors that's going extremely well, not in a rush to deliver it, but obviously the data will get to that tipping point where we can put a resource out there in the market. And I imagine that'll be sometime next year. Okay,
that's great. So you've had a bit of a delay with COVID, as with everything else. 5 rigs gone down to 3. You soon get back up to 5. Any intention with this new raise to, you know, get more rigs on there?
Yeah, there is quite a bit of discussion about that internally. I think we'll be back up to full rig strength here within about a month. And then beyond that, you know, we'd like to get some more news out to the market. Obviously, we've been very busy during the COVID time, so we have been issuing news recently quite frequently, and there's more news that'll be coming. And obviously, we'll put some announcements out once we have time to collect our thoughts a little bit, think about where some extra drilling will be warranted. We'll be messaging that to the market as well.
Okay, and again, just on COVID, you know, have you been working with, I know I sort of remember the conversation previously, working quite closely with the First Nations, making sure that things are being done safely, properly.
Yeah, definitely. We also recently signed like a long-term sort of benefits agreement with the First Nations groups that are near the project. So that puts direct economic benefit into their hands, and you know, not for us to say how the money will be spent at all. We'll just be able to support, you know, various community initiatives there, and that's reflective of the more Great Bear works, the more benefit accrues to the communities. But so far, we haven't had anybody sick on the project. Red Lake had 2 COVID-19 cases in total. And by restricting the import of external labor, they've kept that down to only 2, and that's phenomenal. You know, it's a community that's benefiting from the increased value of gold prices and has not suffered through the pandemic as many other communities have. The reason we restricted our work was to keep it safe for everybody. And like everybody else, we went through all the restrictions off of separate work and separate accommodation and everything else, like all the other companies have as well. And nobody's gotten sick on our project.
Okay, that's really good news. I think it's really, really important that, you know, companies are sensible about this. You're on the TSX-V. Is there any benefit to you joining the main board on TSX?
Yeah, there could be in time. I think that's a very logical step. There are listing criteria, which would include, in our case, having that initial resource published. So you can imagine that would, you know, listing on the big board would be part of that growth process. And I would imagine that we could start looking at that in 2021.
And what about internationally? Any thoughts about making this accessible to other exchanges?
Yeah, there's been some push to get us, you know, listed in London. Certainly, there's some interest there. It hasn't been a priority for us, but we have been building our network of contacts overseas. But we have listed on the OTC QX in the US as well. So the symbol there is GTBAF.
Right. Okay. And again, I think I know the answer to this based on what you said, but I've got to ask the question, which is, I imagine you've had a few phone calls, a few knocks on the door from other companies, maybe interested, but I'm guessing now's not the time, right?
I mean, we've had, there's been this really odd process in Great Bear right from the get-go. We had aggressive interest from much larger companies, and we could have done I can list one of the more entertaining deals we could have done would be to option everything we had in Red Lake for $12 million. A few years ago. So you can imagine that would have bypassed a slight value appreciation. But we always have opportunities that come in. We've been performing well and we've been generating consistent shareholder growth. I want that process to continue until the point that we feel that we are fully valued with what we found. We're not there yet. So we're not in a hurry to do anything. We are basically entertaining a lot of inquiries and conversations, and there's been a lot of site visits going on. You can imagine it's a typical process on a major discovery. But again, we're not in a hurry to go down any of those roads because we've been doing so well as is.
And what about, so okay, you've talked about the near-term future, but I'm trying to get some clues from you as to what you, Chris Taylor, CEO, what's your end game here? Do you want to hang around and get this thing into production? Are you having fun drilling at the moment? I mean, why are you getting up every morning?
It's kind of funny. I get this question a lot, and you understand. I think we just have to be totally realistic that there are no discoveries of this size that are operated by independent mining companies or independent junior explorers. It just doesn't happen, right? So, as time progresses, I mean, we go down the permittings and we have community agreements, we have environmental baseline studies, we have metallurgy going on, more advanced work that's all starting up. So we're going down the route to go and put this thing into production. And that's my background. I worked for a producing mining company for many years, and I think it's a phenomenal way to move the business. It's just that with what we found, whether we'll have that opportunity over the long term, well, I hope we have it for a lot longer, but I don't imagine that's a permanent state of affairs.
No, and obviously, the gold bull market is helping producers. You're not a producer, but the share price has been screaming north, which is great news. What do you think happens if the price of gold pulls back? Think you're going to get affected, or it's not part of the equation, so it doesn't matter?
We don't move very much in tandem with the gold market. You could see that over the last few years. I'm a geologist, so I'm not sure what the betas and alphas and other terminology in the markets really is. I don't really care, actually. But the bottom line is we have not moved with gold prices very tightly. So you could have some pullback, I would imagine, if gold goes down. But this is the kind of discovery that my background as a mining geologist. This is the kind of deposit that has a lot of flexibility. It would, in my mind, I don't have any proof for this because I haven't issued the economic studies, but you cannot see multi-ounce or half-ounce, multi-ounce material to surface over huge areas and not have a lot of economic flexibility built into your discovery. So I see this discovery as having all sorts of different ways that it can be developed and a lot of flexibility around the gold price. So it's not one of these half a gram leverage deals where the gold price has to go up to $1,800 to make it work. We've been drilling off consistently high grade material across kilometers along this LP discovery and now down to several hundred meters depth. And it's bracketed by a broad, gram to a few gram halo around that, that can be hundreds of meters wide. So you could develop it potentially as a bulk tonnage system, as an underground system. I mean, there's lots of ways to skin the cat. That flexibility, I think, would equate to very rapid payback times. And I think that equates to insulation against fluctuations in the gold cycle.
Okay. And I keep saying this, you're a very modest, process-driven guy. I'd like that, very humble. A year ago, could you imagine that this is where you'd be?
Scientifically, it was possible to live through it. I think, generally there's a cult of personality that builds up around CEOs in the industry. I think a lot of it is preposterous. I think a lot of the time, because none of us have X-ray vision and can't see into the ground, we can have good ideas. The most important thing that we can have as CEOs is good people. Because the good people and the multiple, strong minds that get employed on a project are really what generate that value. So Could I have seen this emerging exactly like it has? Well, it was there in my mind, but to live through the experience of this sort of growth and success is totally different. We owe it to, Bob Singh, our VP Exploration. We owe it to the team of consultants that we use for Mini Exploration in Red Lake. We owe it to a lot of people. I may have put the company together and initiated the process. And yes, we successfully market and we successfully raise money, but it's not because of Chris Taylor that Great Bear is successful. It's because of all the good people that are involved. And any CEO that tells you different is, full of himself, basically.
Never a truer word. Well, Chris, I think you've done a great job. I think the market thinks you've done a great job. And, I wish you continued success. It's been meteoric. Like I say, one of a handful of companies that I can look at and go, that's a smart business model with a robust process. So congrats on that one. Let's talk, hopefully not in a year, but maybe a bit sooner, and you can tell us how things are going.
I'd very much love to. Yeah, thanks for speaking with me again, and I hope at some point I see you physically as well. At some point I'll be able to get on a plane. Presumably COVID will not last forever.
Hope not. Thanks again, Chris.